First tonight on our news, live at 7, the Marco alert system is up and running, but one activist is criticizing the notification system for being somewhat misleading. Her comments are straight ahead. But first,
coming up in our news, Prime Minister Philip Davis weighing in on the long-standing issue with petroleum retailers. He says they have his attention. I'm Berthany McDermott, and I'll have those details for you tonight in our news.
Plus, our Work in Progress segment puts Barrier Islands in the spotlight tonight as we bring you the latest on some newly planned projects. And then in our news at 7:30, no time soon, the Prime Minister on the record about proposed amendments that would lead to a tax on sugar. We've got reaction. Our news live at 7 starts right now. Welcome to our news live at 7. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Kendino Knowles. New developments in the Petroleum Retailers Association saga as the Prime Minister is tonight breaking his silence. Davis saying the group, which has for months been lobbying for a margin increase, didn't have to stop selling diesel to get his attention. Berthany McDermott is following this and we'll have more in less than 5 minutes. But now to this. An activist is levying criticism tonight on the Marco alert system, saying there is seemingly still more work to be done. This as there has been a recent uptick in missing cases with blaring phone alerts to residents. The latest just this afternoon about 15-year-old Shantasia Minnis, who was last seen at her Fox Hill residence on Monday, May 29th. Director of Families of All Murder Victims, Candy Gibson, telling our news she's happy about the progress that's being made, while there are still some concerns.
At the end of the day, I thought that they're moving forward with something, and I feel good about it. I personally feel that from someone goes to the police station and report their child is missing, right away that alert, before they even leave that office, the station, right away the alert should be sent out. And I think some phones still say they don't receive it. That alert should be out and disseminated to every phone possible. No matter what the carrier is, it should be out.
Gibson adds, while updates are important, she believes when a child is found, those updates should be focused on the child's well-being. In the case of runaways, she says the focus should be on the adult who was found harboring the minor.
I don't think that's the public business to find out where it is a juvenile or what they did or what crime they did. I think the main focus here is once a child would have been retrieved and it's safe, update the public, hey, guess what? So-and-so, Marco Washington, but so-and-so on the state, and so-and-so has been found, and then now has been found in good care, well taken care of, and charges will be brought against the person for harboring a minor. My thing about it is, we put the matter after alert, yeah, that's fine, but we don't give the public no update on what happened to the person who was caught with the minor, or where the minor was found.
And now to news from the courts as the man who is tonight behind bars accused of separate murders this year. Prosecutors allege 23-year-old Laudell Ferguson fatally shot Hugh Bowe on January 15th and Claude Perry on April 22nd. Bowe, who was actually out on bail for the 2019 murder of Jarvis Butler, was shot dead as he was about to enter a car outside a Flamingo Gardens home. Perry was killed in an ambush shooting after he arrived at his home in Stapleton Gardens. Ferguson wasn't asked to plead when he appeared before Senior Magistrate Carolyn Vogt Evans, who denied him bail. He's expected to be indicted on September 22nd. And now to Andros, where a 35-year-old man is dead after a head-on crash over the weekend. Traffic investigators tell us the deadly incident happening around 9:30 Saturday night when the man was driving a white motorcycle on Queens Highway in San Andros. They say he collided with a 2015 silver Nissan March that was headed in the opposite direction. The woman driving the March received minor injuries while the man was seen by a local doctor before being flown to New Providence on an emergency flight. He later died at Princess Margaret Hospital. A team of officers from the New Providence Traffic Division are expected to travel to the island for the investigation. And now to Prime Minister Philip Davis, who is breaking his silence on recent action taken by gas station owners last month. Davis saying retailers didn't have to stop selling diesel to get his attention. Berthany McDermott has the latest.
They have my attention. They didn't have to not stop selling to get that attention.
As petroleum retailers continue to push for a 30 cents per gallon increase, Prime Minister Philip Davis is breaking his silence on the issue. Petroleum retailers say the current margins aren't sustainable. Meanwhile, the government maintains it will not do anything that will result in an increase at the pumps.
I think at the end of the day, there has to be a balance here. There has to be a balance between profitability and affordability.
2 weeks ago, some retailers temporarily stopped selling diesel in hopes that government would address their issues, but that didn't happen. The association says the current margins are making it hard for their businesses to survive. Today, Davis says the government is looking at finding a way to assist the retailers as best they can.
We can't control what's happening in other jurisdictions, and a lot of times what happens in other jurisdictions impact us here in a very negative way. And so until such time as we are able to control some of those things that we can, and that's what we're working on, we'll see how best we could help the businesses to grow and be profitable.
As inflationary rates start to fall, the Prime Minister says eventually it will pass on to consumers. In the meantime, the Prime Minister believes there is still room for businesses to make it.
At this time, we still believe that there is room for profitability as they are presently constructed, and we continue to listen to them to see how we could help. And the Minister of Economic Affairs will indicate that we did move to help them during last year when oil prices are just going out of the roof and things are just becoming crunch.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
All right, thanks a lot, Berthany. Well, the Prime Minister also addressing the state of the Social Security Fund, saying government cannot afford for the National Insurance Board to fail. The Nassau Guardian reported earlier this year that Cabinet approved a rate increase to take effect July 1st. When asked about it today, Davis responded this way.
If I'm advised by all of the experts that to do nothing, national insurance will fail, and I said to you, I will not let it fail. Do I have to say more?
These comments follow Minister responsible for NIB Miles LaRota's warning that without an increase, the fund stands to lose $95 million. The 11th actuarial valuation of NIB suggests an increase of the contribution rate by 2% every 2 years starting July 1st, 2020, ending July 1st, 2036, in order to restore the short and medium-term financial sustainability of the scheme. Davis saying today he will address the matter at the next sitting of Parliament.
Let me just say we cannot afford for national insurance to fail. We have heard the actual report. We're taking it into consideration. And yes, I'll be speaking to it in more detail when I speak again in the debate.
All right, much more to get to in a moment. But for now, it's time for your first look at temperatures. Meteorologist Greg Thompson is in the Weather Center. Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Kandina, and a happy Monday evening, everybody. A pretty warm evening outside. We haven't lost the sunlight just yet, so temperatures are still in the 80s, 84 degrees outside our studios with just a few clouds, and it is warm. Winds out of the west-northwest at 10 miles per hour, and it feels like temperature hanging out in the mid-80s as well. Temperatures around the islands right now, it is 81 in Freeport as well as in Marsh Harbor, Abaco, 83 in Alistown, Bimini. Over in Great Harbor Key, 84, 83 in Governor's Harbor. Nichols San Andres, you are 85 at this hour as well. In the Central Bahamas, 85 in Kemps Bay, Georgetown, 84s in Arthurstown, Cat Island, Deadman's Key, Coburn Town, San Salvador, you guys are 82. Southeast Bahamas, 84 in Duncantown, Ragged Island. We have some showers and some isolated thunderstorms nearby Colonel Cricket Island and Delectable Bay, you guys are 85. Also 85 in Abrams Bay, 86 in Matthewtown, Inagua, and our neighbors to the southeast, Turks and Caicos Islands, you guys are 86 at this hour as well. Satellite and radar composite, that what was once Arlene, some moisture associated with it, well out there in the northeast Atlantic, moving away from us quickly. We do have a weak boundary across the northern islands that's generating and supporting a few isolated showers and thunderstorms. Those showers are weakening as we lose the sunlight, and we might see 1 or 2 spotty showers later on tonight, but a weak ridge of high pressure will dominate our weather through tonight and into tomorrow. That's your first look at weather. Stick with us. A look at your extended forecast is still to come.
Thanks, Greg. We are just getting started in our news, but when we come back, our work in progress segment takes us to Berry Islands to learn about some newly planned projects. But first, the GB Chamber Chief is lobbying for better for Grand Bahama following government's recent budget communication. And stalled negotiations has got some BTVI staff members on edge, leading to calls for government intervention. The story when our news returns.
If new, Heineken Silver was a riveting Viking saga.
Last the 12th, your family tortured my first wife and stole my second favorite goat. Now you want to marry my daughter. Okay.
All the taste, no bitter endings. Smooth, fresh, silver.
This is our news. Welcome back. We turn our attention now to stories making headlines across the world. Former Republican Vice President Mike Pence is set to enter the 2024 presidential race against his former boss Donald Trump on June 7th. That's according to two Reuters sources who say Pence will launch his campaign with a video and a speech in Iowa. Pence has increasingly distanced himself from the former Republican president since his election day defeat, saying Trump's encouragement of rioters who attacked the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, put him and his family in danger. This as the U.S. Navy released a video it said showed a Chinese warship coming within 150 yards of its destroyer in the Taiwan Strait in what the U.S. military called an unsafe interaction. Gabe Singer reports.
The U.S. Navy has released a video of what it calls a, quote, unsafe interaction with a Chinese warship, in which the Chinese ship cuts in front of a U.S. vessel within 150 yards. The U.S. military said its destroyer, the USS Chung Hoon, as well as the Canadian frigate, were conducting a routine transit of the sensitive Taiwan Strait at the time. In the video, the Chinese ship can be seen sailing across the path of the destroyer, which reportedly had to slow down to avoid a collision. Canadian Navy Commander Paul Mountfort witnessed the incident firsthand.
And thousands of Microsoft Outlook users reported issues with accessing and using the email platform this morning. According to outage tracker Down Detector, Microsoft 365 outage and problem reports peaked at almost 18,000 shortly after 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Microsoft Corp says it has since restored its online services. The tech company said it had rolled back a system upgrade to resolve the outage without providing any detail. And now to the region, as a 51-year-old Haitian-Chilean businessman has been sentenced to life in prison for his role in the July 7, 2021 assassination of Haitian President Jovenel Moïse at his private residence. On Friday, U.S. federal judge Jose Martinez imposed a sentence on Rodolfo Jar for helping Colombian mercenaries get weapons to carry out the killing that also left Moïse's wife injured. Jar is the first person to be convicted and sentenced after what U.S. prosecutors say was a broad plot by the conspirators in Haiti and Florida to reap lucrative contracts under a new administration. This as the death toll from heavy floods that hit Haiti over the weekend has risen to 42, with another 11 people missing. That's according to authorities who say at least 85 people are injured and more than 13,600 homes flooded, forcing people to evacuate. Prime Minister Ariel Henry is said to have asked for international help. And finally, Chevette's, Barbados' biggest quick-service restaurant chain, is set to make its U.S. debut via a food truck pop-up in Manhattan tomorrow and in Boston on Thursday. The food truck pop-up experience is expected to feature many of the restaurant's best sellers. Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc., Export Barbados, and JetBlue are teaming up for the effort. Chevette's is said to be one of Rihanna's favorite spots. Still to come in our news today in history, find out interesting facts about the day that was June 5th, including a tragic plane crash on Long Island. And then in our news at 7:30, residents reacting to a proposed sugar tax and what investigators are saying about the brutal attack of a senior who was beaten to death by a group of men. The story when our news continues. staffers at Bahamas Technical Vocational Institute gathering outside the school's gates to protest stalled negotiations on an industrial agreement, which the group says includes salary and sick day benefits, among other things. Mario Gay is the group's representative.
The reason we are here today is to plead to the government yet again for much needed intervention. It has been 2 months since the conclusion of the negotiations, and now it appears that BTVI's management is refusing to resign the IA and attempting to renegotiate items that have already been agreed to by both sides. This is not right. This is unfair. This is not a show of goodwill.
Our News attempted to speak with BTVI's lead negotiator. However, we were told there was no comment on the instruction of the interim president's office. Protesters say they are not interested in any further negotiations.
It's just simply sign the IA. It is a fair document. The government has been more than fair in their salary packages to us. And we would simply say the IA has been negotiated. The package from the government in terms of salaries and increases and so on, it was more than generous. So we're not here to fight for more monies. We're just saying simply sign the IA.
And now to news on the economy, as Grand Bahama Chamber of Commerce President James Carey says other than the announcement of a new medical facility and airport, there doesn't appear to be any major projects in the pipeline for the island. Carey, who is tonight weighing in on the Prime Minister's newly tabled budget communication, had this to say.
What Grand Bahama needs is to really move us out of the economic slump is some deep spending, one by the Port Authority in the Freeport area, and secondly by the government participating in that process by spending on the two ends of the island that are not within the port area.
Now, we'll have more from that interview coming up in our news at 7:30. And now to the Berry Islands. In tonight's Work in Progress segment, our Marlena Leonard details the ongoing works in Great Harbor Key, including improvements to the airport and miles of roads.
You may remember the grand opening of the new Great Harbor Key Airport in December 2022. But as senior engineer for the Family Islands, David Cox, reveals, the airport itself is complete, but they're still working to make improvements to the property.
We recently completed a brand new airport that was opened in December of 2022, and we also resurfaced the runway, and we built a new car park. The airport or the building is completed, but the infrastructure works, the runways completed, but the car parks isn't finished as yet.
But their efforts aren't limited to the airport development. Cox tells us much of the island can expect to see new roads thanks to a new project started in January.
Now we also have the Great Harbor Key Berry Island Roads. That project is actually ongoing. That was awarded to a company called Abaco Aggregate and Cement. That's for 16 miles of road repairs, extensive road repairs. We're practically doing most of the roads in the Great Harbor Key, and that's a project that started in January, and they're also progressing very well. They're very experienced contractors, and they've gone about 30% of that work now.
Reporting for Work in Progress for Our News, I'm Marlena Leonard.
When Our News comes back from the break, we turn our spotlight to stories making headlines across the world as the race for U.S. president heats up, with former Republican VP Mike Pence set to launch his campaign. This as a Haitian-Chilean businessman gets life in prison for the July 2021 assassination of Haitian Prime Minister Jovenel Moïse. And today in history, the 2021 repatriation of 95 Haitian nationals, including 6 children. The details when Our News returns. Welcome back to Our News. It's time now to turn our spotlight on events that shaped the day that was June 5th. Take a look. On this day in Bahamian history in 2012, then Free National Movement Chairman Charles Maynard made headlines after his interview on Cable 12's Political View with Jeff Lloyd, in which he said the party would court former F&M members, including then DNA leader Branville McCartney. McCartney had split from the party prior to the 2012 general elections, in which his new party secured some 11,000 votes.
I started the program by saying that we are going to reach out to all former F&Ms and ask them to come home, and Mr. McCartney is no different from the rest. We are definitely going to reach out our hand to him and say, Mr. McCartney, you an F&M. You always said that your first link in politics was looking at the F&M and being an F&M and being involved in the F&M. Whatever reasons there were that caused you to do otherwise, look at it again and see if it makes sense for you to be at home where you belong rather than out there trying to keep a fledgling party going.
Then in 2013, the country learned of the United States' intention to deport about a dozen criminals of Bahamian descent, putting national security officials on alert, as they maintained that criminal deportees were significantly contributing to the country's current crime wave. At the time, officials reported more than 1,000 convicted criminals were deported from the U.S. to the Bahamas since 2002. Then Prime Minister Perry Christie said he had reached out to the U.S. for support if the deportations were to continue.
When I was at the office in Miami 2 days ago, I was given a list of a dozen young persons who the Americans are waiting on the Bahamas to agree to be returned to the Bahamas because America is expelling them. And what happens is that these people who are exposed to criminal practices, they come home, they obviously, some of them don't even know about the Bahamas because they left as a child, but because the Americans have this policy, they have to come here, and we cannot resist their coming here.
In 2021, our news reported on 95 Haitian nationals who were repatriated, even as travel to and from Haiti was still banned under COVID-19 emergency orders in place since 2020. The group included 67 men, 22 women, and 6 children. And finally, on this day in 2022, was the tragic end to what was dubbed the return of Long Island Regatta, after a plane carrying 7 people, including the pilot, crashed shortly after takeoff from the Deadman's Key Airport. 22-year-old Alethea Newbold, the mother of a 6-month-old girl, died.
The scene was a bit chaotic in the beginning because everyone was trying to assist wherever possible. But we had a lot of volunteer, and the medical team was there.
Yeah. How would you say Islanders are reacting to this right now, especially since we've just come out of what's been described as a successful regatta?
Yes, the Islanders are, shocked after having a successful regatta and, to wake up to this morning. But they're handling it well. They're giving God thanks because it could have been worse,
All right, to watch that historical recap again and for all of today's top stories, visit ournews.bs. That's going to do it for us in News at 7. Joining us now is Atalia Hall with the latest headlines. Atalia?
Yes, Ken. Watching Today in History, seeing that tragedy a year ago, you covered that story.
Yeah.
How do you feel looking back?
It was really hard to do. It was really hard to cover, especially having spoken to Our News, got to speak with Alethea's partner at the time, and obviously that was a hard thing to see, especially because he's now a single father. Yeah. But it would be interesting to see where they are now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Hopefully that's something we can follow soon.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much, Ken. Well, the Prime Minister clarifying a proposed sugar tax as residents react, plus the latest from investigators on the deadly beating of a senior citizen. Here are your latest headlines.
Candy, sodas, and chips. Are these some of your favorite snacks? Well, there's a tax proposed for sugary products.
Everything is just sky high right now. Nobody got time for that.
We have reaction tonight. This as the Prime Minister says that tax isn't coming at this very moment. We have his full comments. Also, a sale at a business establishment turned into tragedy as the owner of the business was shot. We have more details on the incident from police. And later, following a back and forth between government and the Grand Bahama Port Authority, the GB Chamber President is weighing in.
A back and forth the way it's happening is not good for any business community.
Our news live at 7:30 is back in a moment.
Whether you're battling a chronic condition or offsetting a new injury, Doctors Hospital's comprehensive rehab services offer the help you need now.
Go to doctors.
3 advanced facilities at Collins Avenue, Carmichael Road, in Cable Beach means your personalized plan for care is just a visit away. From physiotherapy to occupational therapy and speech and language pathology, our team approach is all about rebuilding together. For a full list of services, visit doctorshosp.com/rehabilitation. Doctors Hospital, trusted and best care now. Isn't your health worth it?
Welcome to our news and thank you for joining us. I'm Natalia Hall. Topping news tonight, no sugar tax anytime soon. That's the word from Prime Minister Philip Davis, despite there being a proposed amendment to the Customs Management Bill 2023, which would empower the Finance Minister to make regulations providing for the payment of a health and wellness levy. The levy will be on the importation of specified goods and domestically manufactured foods deemed to have a negative impact on health and wellness.
At this time, no. We are attempting to cause Bahamians to understand what sugar is to their health. We have put a framework in place to determine whether or not it will be done, but nothing is happening with that. It's not going to happen anytime soon.
Now, a 2019 STEPS report says there's a 20% chance of a Bahamian dying early or prematurely from a non-communicable disease. Davis says at the moment they're consulting stakeholders.
We are talking with the industry to see how they're able to lessen sugar in the ingredients in which for sodas, etc. And because the stats have shown that it is one of the significant contributors to non-communicable diseases, something that this country is struggling with as I speak. And so no, that is not going to be done this year. I don't see it coming very soon either.
While residents are sounding off on a proposed sugar tax, our Joshua Williams got reaction today and filed this report.
Despite Prime Minister Philip Davis' assurance that there will be no sugar tax soon, residents are weighing in over the possibility it comes to fruition in the future. When asked if he supports a proposed sugar tax, Brent Williamson says he endorses anything that contributes to the well-being of society.
So at the end of the day, one way or the other, we end up paying for it. So which better way to show love for your people than to encourage a healthy lifestyle and healthy living? So I definitely endorse that. So anything that will actually improve the quality of life, you have to back that 100%. So I see it the same way. It's not taxing, but actually it's trying to encourage persons to live a more healthier lifestyle.
In a local daily, Health Minister Dr. Michael Darville says that the tax would not be a revenue-generating tool. Tanisha Young sharing that while the tax would work, there are better ways for government to collect revenue.
Well, I'm not really a proponent for taxation. I think there are more creative ways to bring funding into a country, and I think there's other ways should be explored. But if anything should be taxed, sugar is definitely one of them. I think it would work. It would definitely discourage that. And I say healthier Bahamas, I'm with that.
This resident says that focus should be placed on monitoring school meals as opposed to taxation.
In school, the teachers, I know they stop children from eating chips and, any of them little stuff what ain't, good for their body and stuff. But I guess school, they should take it away from school. Because when the parents in there, the children they go buy all kind of sweets and stuff. So most definitely not in the school.
This resident says educating people instead of taxing may be the answer.
I don't know if a sugar tax is necessary. I feel more education is a necessary thing as opposed to just imposing a tax. Taxes are never a good thing. And besides, it won't bother me so much. I'm diabetic, so I wouldn't be dealing so much with all the sugar. But I do think education is more what's needed as opposed to a tax. Taxes are never good.
Reporting for our news, I'm Joshua Williams.
All right, thanks, Josh. Well, police have charged a man who they say is responsible for the armed robbery and rape of a 44-year-old woman at her home. 35-year-old Nikita Jean is accused of robbing the woman of $450 at gunpoint and sexually assaulting her at her home in the downtown area on May 28th. Jean was not required to enter a plea to the charges when he appeared before Assistant Chief Magistrate Subasola Swain. Bail was denied and he returns to court on September 5th to receive a voluntary bill of indictment. Well, police need your help finding a suspect they say shot a Chinese businessman at a store on East Street. The incident happening just after noon yesterday. Police say the victim was at his business on East Street, just south of Wolf Road, when a man entered and purchased an item. The suspect then left the establishment and returned with a gun and opened fire in the store, which resulted in the 53-year-old businessman being shot to the upper body. Emergency medical technicians transported the victim to hospital, where his condition is listed as serious but stable. The suspect, who was clad in a white t-shirt, blue jeans pants, escaped by running into a nearby community. Well, a senior citizen is dead after being brutally beaten by a group of men. The 65-year-old died in hospital around 4 a.m. on Sunday, just hours after the attack. Police say they received reports of the assault and were called to a home in the Malcolm Allotment East, where they found the victim battered, who said he had been beaten by a group of men. Emergency medical technicians transported the victim to hospital for medical attention, but he died from his injuries just 6 hours later. Now, police need the public's help in identifying the attackers. Anyone with information is asked to contact police at 911, 919, the Criminal Investigation Department at 502-9991, or Crime Stoppers at 328-TIPS. Nice temperatures outside the Our News studios this evening following a rain-filled weekend. Meteorologist Greg Thompson is in the Weather Center with a first look at weather. Greg?
Thanks, Italia, and welcome everybody for a quick check on conditions outside our studios and around the islands. It's 84 degrees outside our studios right now with a few clouds. Your winds out of the west-northwest at 10 miles per hour, and your feels-like temperature is at 84. Satellite view, quiet across our area. We have a weak pressure pattern in place. That moisture associated with once Arlene is now well out there towards the northeast and away from us. Weak boundary across the northern islands, sparking a few isolated showers. Most of that activity will wane as the evening goes on, but we will be left with a weak pressure pattern and some dry air mass in place. That's a quick check on conditions around the island. Stick with us. A look at your extended forecast is still to come.
Still to come on Our News, mixed reaction over the new Nassau cruise port.
Well, it looked promising, I must say. I can't put a pinpoint or hand on it as yet because every day is different. So probably in another month or so I'll be able to ascertain. But so far, I'm grateful.
Our Jamila Mizik speaks with vendors in the area. Plus, the Grand Bahama Chamber of Commerce president is calling for government and the Port Authority to come to a resolution. This is government says decisive action is soon to come. And later, international arrivals just got easier for locals as the Promise Customs Exempt app launches next week. That's all coming up when Our News returns.
One of the main gateways to the city of Nassau will see millions of visitors this year, but how has business been at the new Nassau cruise port since the opening? Our Jamila Mizik has mixed reaction tonight.
With 4.2 million passengers expected to visit the Nassau cruise port this year, this could mean big business for those who work nearby. Less than 2 weeks after its grand opening, vendors at the Nassau cruise port say so far it's been going well.
Well, it looked promising, I must say. I can't put a pinpoint or hand on it as yet because every day is different. So probably in another month or so I'll be able to ascertain. But so far, I'm grateful.
I was at first a little hesitant with all of the Bahamian made goods. I'm saying, Lord, how are we going to make it? Because the prices are different and all of that. But I've been satisfied so far.
As for taxi drivers, tour chairman of the Taxi Cab Union, Frederick Wallace, is singing a similar tune. He says business is much better than before.
Many of my colleagues would concur with me when I say this is the best that I've seen the system running ever, period. Particularly since we moved from the outside into the inside, because right now there's no more chaos.
But some aren't as happy with the setup of the new cruise port, saying it's crippled their usual income.
See, the business slow now. The business is slow. See, when since it open, the business gets slow.
We crying the most because why? We on the outside looking in. If you could see, all of the tourists are really detouring and going like as far as Senior Frogs. from the port building straight down to Senior Frogs. So where we can have access to the tourists to come this way and spend some money with us.
For straw vendors who operate just across the street in the Nassau Straw Market, there are mixed reviews.
I spoke to several vendors already. Some of them said business has stayed the same. Some of them feel that business has dropped. I feel that we need to give this a longer period, seeing that they are open, to make a fair assessment.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jamila Missick.
All right, thanks, Jamila. Well, following a back and forth between government and the Grand Bahama Port Authority, the president of the Grand Bahama Chamber of Commerce is weighing in, and he's calling on both parties to come to a resolution.
We were a bit surprised that the comments were made, and at the time they were made in the budget communication. As a chamber, we have, of course, invited the Prime Minister to come and share with the business community.
That's President of the Grand Bahama Chamber of Commerce, James Carey, giving his take on the back and forth between government and the Grand Bahama Port Authority on the current state of Freeport's economy. Carey says it's not good for the business community.
It tends to create some doubt and question about the sustainability of agreements that are in effect.
He says he's anxious to know what the Prime Minister's plan is as it relates to his comment on decisive action.
I don't think that the Hawksbill Creek agreement will be sent to the dustbin. I can't see that happening. That sounds too much of their own message.
But the Chamber President believes government is right in pushing the Port Authority to do more.
We believe as a chamber that more can be done. We also believe that it would be good to see some more transparency coming out of the Port Authority and some more participation of the business community, particularly independent persons not associated with the Port Authority, for example, on their board and be part of the process of decision making.
And as for what he thinks the solution is,
I think what needs to be put on the table is government's expectations, their requirements, and the Port Authority put on the table what they're doing or what they can do and are prepared to do as part of this process. There has to be a sit down in the room and if necessary, lock the doors and let's hammer this out and get some results.
All right, the Consumer Affairs and Consumer Protection Commission building moving to a new home today. Officials were on hand to cut the ribbon for the new facility. Minister responsible Michael Halkita says there are key areas where government feels inclined to offer protection to consumers. He says officials are also moving to digitize the inspection process.
Our e-Bahamas promotion has commenced with the Department of Transformation and Digitization and a private entity having embarked on the acquisition of new technology with software and tablet training given to all Consumer Affairs Inspectorate staff. Applications and software developed to enhance and modernize the Consumer Affairs Inspectorate were field tested in March 2023 by the Consumer Affairs Inspectorate and the Department of Digitization.
Moving forward, he says government is reviewing legislation to modernize consumer protection for all Bahamians. Halkita says the plan is to expand services and resources throughout the Family Islands.
The Consumer Affairs Inspectorate will embark on adopting school initiatives while reestablishing community awareness outreach programs and public service announcements to educate the Bahamian public on their rights and provide a forum for consumers at large to voice their concerns.
It's now time for tonight's Financial Market Minute, brought to you by RF, your local investment bank. This has been your Financial Market Minute. To explore the best performing mutual funds in the Bahamas, visit our website at www.rfgroup.com.
When our news comes back from the break, new technology is on the way. In less than a week, those entering the country will meet a new declaration system in place with the launch of the new Customs Exempt app.
Jonquel Jones and the Liberty lose a close one to Chicago, and see which Bahamian baseball star served as team captain in the HBCU All-Star Game over the weekend. Hold tight, Our Sports is coming up next.
And following a wet weekend, there are some nice weather conditions in the capital today. Greg is back with your extended weather forecast when our news returns.
This is our news. Welcome back. The Bahamas Customs Department has gone paperless with exemption forms, that is. Come June 12th, all residents will be required to use the Exempt app when clearing customs, which means there will be no more exemption forms when you arrive in country. Customs officials are advising residents to become familiar with the app before traveling for easier use and a quicker process.
Download the app to your phone. It is located in both the Google Play Store and the iOS App Store. Everyone that is going to be in your party is required to register, which means that persons 12 years and older are required to have a valid email address. Minors that are 12 and under, they can be attached to their parents' profile.
Now, all of the necessary forms will be available on the app, and instructional videos on how to use the app can be accessed on bahamascustoms.gov.bs. And for those without a smartphone, officials say kiosks will also be available for use.
The hope is that when you register and use it, you're using it before you get back home. Okay, so you're going to fill out your form, you're able to pay online. So when you get here, you pick up your bags, you go straight to the custom officer. So it's also supposed to help with time. It's going to help us with statistics. It's going to be paperless. So all of these things to help the environment, to help the process. You'll be able to see what you're paying for beforehand. So and know what you have to have in hand if you're going to pay in the customs hall.
Today's sports update is sponsored by Michelob Ultra, distributed in the Bahamas by Jimmy's Wines and Spirits.
Jonquel Jones and the New York Liberty fall to the Chicago Sky, and Dalen Adderley played in an HBCU baseball all-star game. Tej Adderley joins us now with a check on sports. Tej?
Thanks, Italia, and welcome to Our Sports. Jonquel Jones and the New York Liberty fell to the Chicago Sky in a closely contested matchup on Sunday afternoon. Here's a look at what went down. Jonquel Jones and her New York Liberty fell to the Chicago Sky last night, 86-82. Jonquel, who was still working her way back from injury, had 9 points and 6 rebounds in only 21 minutes. Brianna Stewart had 21 points and 11 rebounds to lead the Liberty. She also scored a bucket to tie the game at 76 apiece deep into the fourth. That would be as close as Liberty got to winning, however, as they would get put away by the Sky, who were led by Kaylia Cooper with 27 points and 7 rebounds. That was a tough loss for the Liberty, but look for them to improve as Jonquel continues to recover. Dalen Adderley established himself as one of the best hitters in all of college baseball this season. This past weekend, he got to participate in the HBCU All-Star Game. Dalen Adderley served as team captain in the 2023 HBCU All-Star Game over the weekend at Cool Ray Field in Lawrenceville, Georgia, a suburb of Atlanta. The event was held by Minority Baseball Prospects, an organization founded to promote baseball among African Americans. The event showcased the best HBCU baseball players and softball players from Divisions 1 and 2 and NAIA schools. Dalen served as team captain for Team Ralph Garr as they played against Team Andre Dawson. The junior outfielder had an historic season for Texas Southern University, leading the conference in batting average and OPS, winning Conference Player of the Year and Hitter of the Year. He is draft eligible, so we'll keep you posted on his next move. Now that looked like a fun party over the weekend. That'll do it for sports. I'm Tej Adderley. Back to you, Italia.
Thanks, Tej. Don't go away just yet. Greg is back with a check on conditions for the next several days in your extended weather forecast when our news returns. Stay with us.
Welcome back to our news. A lovely evening in the capital, but what type of weather conditions can we expect for the rest of the work week? Well, Greg is back in the Weather Center with your extended weather forecast. Greg?
Yeah, thanks again, Natalia, and welcome back, everybody, for our final check on weather conditions around the islands. Weak pressure pattern in place that's keeping us with some light winds, but we do have some moisture still in place. What was once Arlene is now pushed off towards the north and east, has merged with a frontal boundary out there in the open Atlantic. That moisture pattern will continue to move away from us. There is also a weak boundary across the northern islands, generating a few isolated showers and some thunderstorms. Most of that activity waning as the evening goes on, and we will continue to remain rather dry tomorrow. But we do expect a weak upper level trough to move across our area by Wednesday. That's going to introduce some showers and some thunderstorms. So we have 1 day of dry conditions, and then conditions will return once again to some moist rainfall. This is a look at our conditions through tomorrow and into Wednesday. Showers and isolated thunderstorms will be in the forecast as that system pushes across us. We start this on Monday, spotty shower or two, and then Tuesday, quiet across area, and then on Wednesday, as I mentioned, we expect some more showers in the forecast. Boating forecast for the Northwest Bahamas through tonight and into tomorrow. Small craft caution in place, and that's all due to some swells. Our winds will be north to northeast at 10 to 15 knots. Seas 2 to 4 feet near shore, but they will be up to 7 feet offshore and some northeasterly swells, and that will be mainly along the north and east coast of the islands. High tide will be at 9:50 tonight. For the central and southeast Bahamas, caution flight for you guys down there as well. Your winds will be variable at 5 to 10 knots. Seas running 1 to 3 feet near shore, but up to 5 feet offshore in some northeasterly swells. Here's a look now at your national forecast. In your extended forecast, 1 more day of dry conditions. That's tomorrow, and then we introduce some showers and some isolated thunderstorms in the forecast starting Wednesday. That will continue through the remainder of the week, and looks as though that should move into early next week. But those temperatures are approaching the summer-like values near the 90-degree mark. Overnight lows will be very warm and humid in the mid-70s. That's a look at our weather. Make it a safe night, everybody.
All right, thanks so much, Greg, and thank you for joining us for our news tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Natalia Hall. We'll see you tomorrow night. Have a great evening.